Stephen looked at his grades for the semester so far, the computer screen flickering. He rubbed his tired eyes and logged off. He had been in college for a year, and all of it was being paid for by scholarships and the money he made on his own. His family helped with nothing, and that was the way he wanted it. With a tired ache in his body, he pulled himself up from the chair and left the library. He was planning on meeting his friends in the dining hall on the south side of the campus, a far cry from where he was now. Stephen. A few people greeted him as he passed by, having recognized him from some of the parties he had gone to over various weekends. He arrived at the dining hall to find Philip, Orion, and Adam were already there. Philip and Orion were friends he had made during his various trips to the internet cafe, and Adam was a comrade he made during a drinking challenge his first week in college. The four of them discussed various topics before separating. It was there when Stephen first saw her. He was holding open the door to the dining hall for a group of incoming students when a tall and gorgeous woman walked in. She was an ethereal type of beauty that was completely natural. And a natural beauty she was. Stephen had grown up with a grandmother, a mother, and two older sisters who had all undergone the knife, so he became an expert at picking out those who had had surgery and those who hadn't. Stephen felt his eyes following, watching as she tugged a strand of golden blonde hair behind her ear. Stephen felt his fingers loosen on the door handle as he made his way back into the dining hall. "Excuse me," he called out, his natural swag bleeding into his voice and movements. The girl turned around and gave him a friendly smile when she saw him. He pulled out his phone and held it out to her. "For some reason, your number seems to be missing from my phone." The girl smiled, and the words she spoke in reply had a zing going through his heart. "I wonder how that happened." "Well, we can't have that." She took his phone and saved her number in it. When she handed it over, she gave it back to him. She leaned forward. "Prove you deserve that title over my name, handsome." She then straightened up and left. Stephen looked down at his phone as he left the dining hall. A new contact had been saved under his phone, and the name for that contact had him smiling like a fox. Girlfriend. That was the name saved under the contact. Stephen stopped when he realized he didn't know her actual name. "My sweetie, my love, what shall I call you when I take you out for dinner tomorrow at 7? Stephen texted the new number. His grin widened when an immediate reply came in. "Lila. I want Julian's tomorrow. See you there." Julian's was an Italian pizza place that had opened up on the main street just outside of the campus. Stephen tapped the phone against his lips before placing it back into his pocket. He had more class for that day, and his plan was to hole up in the house he shared with three others to finish working out the final kinks in the new game he had been developing. After class, Stephen was sitting on the living room floor with a cup of black coffee that had 4 sugars in it, a can of beer, a bag of chips, and loads of candy bars surrounding him. He didn't care what he ate or what he mixed together since it all wound up in his stomach anyway. Munching on his brain food, his fingers flew over the keyboard as he navigated his character through the final stage. So far, he had found no bugs or strange glitches when he played the game. He would need to do one final test before he could officially release it. Mark, his gym buff housemate, came back just as Stephen finished. Stephen roped the guy into playing his game, and when Mark died for the nth time and there were still no glitches, Stephen gave the project his final approval. "Thanks man," Stephen thanked him. "No problem," Mark said, an easygoing smile on his strongly boyish face. Stephen had no clue how someone could have such a ripped, gorilla body but still looked like a child in the face. But Stephen liked the contrast, it was natural and unique. The next day came in a blur, leaving Stephen blurry-eyed. His head pounded from the lack of sleep and mix of alcohol as he diligently took down notes for each of his classes. His headache cleared away when it came time for his date. He arrived at Julian's 5 minutes before he was supposed to meet Lila. It wasn't long after he got there that Lila arrived. Her hips swayed with a confidence that was completely natural and not faked. "Lila," Stephen greeted as he opened the door for her. "Oh, a gentleman," she pointed out with a rise of her eyebrow, an approving smile on her face. They made their way to the counter where Lila ordered. Stephen added a beer and a box of spicy boneless chicken wings to the order. He paid for it while Lila grabbed a drink from the fountain. They sat across from each other. Stephen took this time to ask a couple of questions about her. He only asked a few, not wanting to overdo it. Besides, he was confident that he would have more time to get to know her. Lila's smile stayed on her face during their conversation. When they were done eating, Lila leaned into Stephen's ear as they were leaving. "I'll pay next time," she whispered in his ear. His fox-like smile widened. "I look forward to it." Stephen wasn't one to say no when a confident and sexy woman wanted to take charge. As he was walking home, his phone rang with an unidentified number. He answered it and immediately regretted it. "Stephen," his mother's voice came out from the other end. "You finally answered, you brat. Come back home and stop that childish crap." The voice was haughty and demanding. "No can do." Stephen hung up then and immediately blocked the number. He sighed as he realized that he would have to change his number again. He shoved his phone into his pocket and continued walking back home. Just a little over a year ago, Stephen had told his family that he wanted to become a game developer. His parents had completely shut him down. He was the only son, the only heir to his father's company. That wasn't something Stephen wanted. He told his parents to put one of his sisters in charge. His two older sisters, who were steadily rising actresses, had outright refused. When things became worse with his family, Stephen ran away, going so far as legally changing his last name. That was probably a childish decision on his part, but ever since leaving his family, he finally felt like he could breathe. The days bled together, a mixture of Stephen going to class, hanging out at the internet cafe with his friends, and working on developing another new game, a simple mobile one this time. It was midday Friday and Stephen was leaving his computer programming class when his phone buzzed. He looked at it to find a text from Lila. "Party at Lindsay's tonight. Coming." It read. Stephen smiled as he sent a quick reply. There was no way he was missing out on a party with free booze. Not to mention his girlfriend would be there. Stephen walked back to his place without rushing. He changed out of his clothes and put on something else, still black just like the rest of his wardrobe. After swapping out his earrings for silver studs, he plopped down on his bed and pulled out his homework from his book bag. He still had time to get his work done before the time he promised to meet Lila. When the hours ticked forward and the sun lowered in the sky, Stephen stood up and made his way to 4th Street where Lila and her brother lived. The two of them were walking out of their apartment building when he arrived. "Is this the boyfriend?" Lila's brother asked, looking at Stephen for the first time. Stephen held out his hand in a relaxed manner. "Stephen," he said as way of greeting. Lila's brother grinned, but his hand tightened into a firm grip when he took Stephen's hand. Leo greeted, copying Stephen's way of greeting. Lila rolled her eyes. "Are you two done?" She smacked Leo in the arm. "Stop with the overbearing, tough guy act." Leo's lips turned down into a pout. "Why am I the one getting in trouble?" Lila shook her head, amusement lighting up her eyes. "Because you're my brother." She walked over to Stephen and wrapped her arm in his, "and he is my boyfriend," she said. Stephen's fox-like smile grew as he watched Lila. This was the kind of girl he had been looking for his entire life. The three of them walked down the street, slowly making their way to Lila's friend's place. Stephen cocked his head as he just realized something. "Should we have brought extra drinks with us? I have a friend who never forgets to bring more booze when he comes." Lila shook her head. "Lindsay will have plenty." Leo, on the other hand, was looking at Stephen with sparkling eyes. "You need to introduce me to that friend." Stephen laughed. "Sure. I'll invite you to my next party. You can experience his generosity then," Stephen said, his gray eyes holding nothing but mirth in them. They arrived soon after, and Stephen immediately found a red Solo cup in his hand, handed to him by some random person standing at the door. His smile grew. "Now, this is my kind of party." Lila laughed, taking her own cup from the person who seemed to have an endless supply of them. "Lindsay's parties are always like this," she explained. Music poured out of hidden speakers and people around them. Stephen pulled Lila by the hand, pulling her to the middle of the living room which had been cleared out to make room. "Let's dance." Lila smiled, following Stephen's lead. After a while, a girl with brown hair came over to them. "I'm holding a game of truth or dare upstairs," she said. Lila leaned in close to Steven. "Wanna play?" Lindsay's games are entertaining. Steven nodded his head, always up for some good fun. The two of them followed the brown-haired girl upstairs, along with quite a few others. The brown-haired girl, who was more and likely Lindsay, pulled out a box that had two slots cut into the lid. One side had truth written on it while the other side had dare written on it. Everyone sat in a loose circle around Lindsay. Starting from the left, Lindsay began, "Truth or dare?" The person sitting directly on Lindsay's left boldly took dare. "The dare is to wear a dress." Lindsay showed everyone the words written on the paper. The guy's boldness didn't flicker as he took the dress Lindsay offered him. He shed out of his shirt and pants, only leaving his boxers on, right in front of everyone. He pulled the dress on. The poor dress stretched over the guy's broad shoulders. A few people in the group took pictures. After a few minutes, the guy changed back into his clothes. The next three people chose truth, not wanting to get a dare similar to the dress one. "Dare," Steven said confidently. "Tell 3 random people that you love them." Steven shrugged, stood up and made his way to the dress guy first. Steven knelt down. "I love you," his words were confidently smooth. He heard a few people snickering behind him. He then stood up and picked 2 girls he had never seen before. Lila was the next person to go. "Dare," her voice was smooth and confident. "Straddle the person next to you." The words had barely left Lindsay's mouth when Lila slid into his lap. She went one step above and leaned down and kissed him. Steven's hands came up and wrapped around her waist, keeping her there. He was pretty sure that the game continued on without them, but Steven didn't care. He was too busy enjoying his time with exploring the warm and hot willing mouth before him. Steven woke up the next day with a groan. He was laying face down on a couch. His head pounded as the morning light bled in through the curtains. He heard a few others groaning and shuffling around him. Steven slowly cracked open his eyes, the pain in his head increased. A small chuckle from beside him had him looking. Lila was standing next to the couch, a steaming cup of coffee in her hands. "Sugar?" he asked, his voice sounding painfully quiet. Lila chuckled again. "4 sugars. I noticed that's how you always take it." Steven sat up and took the coffee. As he took a slow sip, savoring the bittersweet taste, he was struck once again how wonderful his girlfriend was. It had only been a week since he had met her, but he was clearly in love with her. "I love you," slipped out of him after he finished his drink. Lila slid down onto the couch beside him. "Good," she said. "Make sure to take good care of me." They left after that. The pounding in Steven's head had subsided minutely. Lila wrapped her hand in his as they walked down the mostly empty street. "My family is coming in next week. I want to introduce them to you." Steven looked at her with his eyes slightly narrowed. He was actually excited that Lila wanted to take their relationship to the next step, but he had a small feeling that he may not make the cut. Lila may have dressed simply on most days, but those simply designed clothes still cost more than what more people could afford. What are my chances of getting their approval?" he asked. Lila gave him a long stare, her blue eyes hiding mirth within them. "It depends," she said, not giving him a real answer. Once Steven walked her back home, he headed to his house, desperately wanting a shower and his teeth brushed. The weekend passed by way too fast for Steven's taste. Heck, even the week blurred by. Steven had gone on 2 more dates with Lila during the week, and that was the only time when time moved as it should. It finally turned into the day when Steven was supposed to meet Lila's family. He rummaged through his closet, looking for something that might help boost his image. "Who am I kidding, all my clothes look the same." After muttering that to himself, Steven gave a half-hearted shrug and decided to just wear whatever. Steven hopped on the bus and rode it into town. He got off on the street located across from the restaurant Lila's parents had chosen. Once the traffic had cleared enough, Steven jogged across the street, a lopsided fox smile curving his lips when he saw Lila and her brother climbing out of a car. "Lila," he greeted her first as soon as he reached them. Lila smiled and purposely linked her arm with his. Leo, who was standing off to the side, snickered when he saw that his sister was laying claim to Stephen. Their parents, a well-dressed middle-aged couple, were standing there with blank, neutral expressions on their faces. Stephen held out a hand to Lila's father. "Hello, I'm Stephen, Lila's boyfriend." Lila's father frowned slightly, but still shook Stephen's hand in a friendly manner. "I'm Jacob Everson," her father greeted in a stern tone. "It's nice to meet you, sir," Stephen said, slipping back into the tone he used to use when he lived with his family. Stephen shook hands with Lila's mom next. "I'm Lacey Everson," she spoke with a measured voice, her eyes scanning him from head to toe with a critical eye. The five of them headed into the restaurant then, Lila's arms still wrapped around Stephen's. The air wasn't as stuffy as Stephen thought it would be, but kind of easygoing after the first initial minutes which had been slightly tense. "What's your major?" Mr. Everson asked casually, taking a sip of his water. "Computer science," Stephen answered easily. "I plan on opening my own company in game development in the future." Leo, who had been pretending to not pay attention, perked at Stephen's words. "Have you tried developing any games yet?" Leo asked. Stephen's smile grew into a grin, his voice proud. "I developed my first one in high school behind my parents' back. It was a mobile game. And I just finished developing a more evolved RPG game. Though I technically didn't do that one alone. I worked on it with Nick. Nick was in the same major as him, and the two of them had already agreed to work together to open their own company in the future." "That's a difficult job to go into," Mr. Everson said, interrupting Stephen's and Leo's conversation, afraid that the two of them would go on for hours about games. "It is, but it's what I want to do," Stephen stated with conviction. After dinner ended, the Eversons offered to take Stephen back home. He turned them down, telling them that there was something that he needed to buy before heading back. Before heading off to the grocery store, he bid Lila goodbye by kissing her on the cheek, something that Mrs. Everson seemed to approve of if her expression was anything to go by. Stephen left the restaurant's parking lot and headed over to the nearest supermarket. He stepped in and headed straight to where the instant coffee and sweetener packets were. Both were in the same aisle. When he had woken up that morning, Stephen had noticed that they were dangerously low, probably only had enough for this day and the next. With the back dangling in his hand, he walked over to the nearest bus stop, knowing that one would be pulling up any minute. The bus ride was quiet and short by the time he exited off. He walked down the street that was just one over from his. When he reached the house that he rented with his housemates, his feet paused when he noticed an expensive black car in the driveway. A car with the same make and model of one that he knew very well. Stephen's eyes narrowed and his expression became dark. He really hoped that car didn't belong to who he thought it did. But he was unfortunately correct in his fears. Sitting in their living room with an extremely disgruntled look on her surgically smooth face was his mother. "Mother," he deadpanned with a blank expression. Poor Mark was standing there, fidgeting nervously in his tightly stretched gym clothes, looking like he wanted nothing more than to flee. What in the world has his mother done in the time that she was here alone with him? Stephen asked himself, knowing full well how his mother was. "You brat. It took a year to find you, you ungrateful thing." Her condescending tone came down like a hammer. Stephen's eyes narrowed even more, his glare becoming icy. "What do I owe the pleasure of you coming here, mother?" His words had a sarcastic bite to them. His mother's eyes narrowed, or at least, they tried to. She had had so much plastic surgery done that her face refused to give way to movement. "Don't use that tone with me. Pack your things. You're coming back with me." Mark stepped forward, looking as if he really wanted to say something. Stephen stopped him by scoffing very loudly. "You can't force me. I legally cut ties with you and your family. I can press charges if you try anything." Unfortunately, Stephen knew that even that wouldn't stop his family. Stephen's phone buzzed just then with an incoming call. From the ringtone, he knew that it was Lila, but he didn't answer. He couldn't. Not until his mother was out of his house and as far from him as possible. His mother stood up just then, the movements looking stiff. "Fine. Have it your way today. I'll be back with the lawyer." She left, surprising Stephen. He had been expecting her to fight back a little more before using her brain. Stephen watched as she left. As soon as the door closed, his hand was on his phone, dialing the number to a lawyer he had used before. After recapping the events to his lawyer, she agreed to take his case. Stephen slumped down onto the couch after that, his heart feeling heavy. Where was he going to get the money needed to fight against his family? "Are you all right?" Mark asked, taking a step closer to him. Stephen looked up at him with a tired smile. "Peachy," he said. "But I would be feeling even better if you were some kind of secret billionaire." Mark's lips twitched down. "I wish." Yeah, Stephen was pretty sure that was a long stretch. His phone rang again. Stephen answered the call, but before he could say anything, Lila's voice cut through, stopping him. "What happened?" "You never miss one of my calls," she asked simply, not demanding anything. Stephen chuckled, his mood picking up. "You don't happen to be a secret billionaire, do you?" he joked, asking the same question he had asked Mark. "How much do you need?" she asked. Stephen laughed this time. It was loud and hearty. It was the type of laugh that turned his cheeks pink from the force of it. "Nah, just forget I asked. I can tell your family has money, but I'm not that desperate yet." Stephen hung his head to the side, the long strands of his black hair falling over the arm of the couch. "Did you know? I ran away from my family. Changed my name and everything." Mark, who had been not so secretly listening to his phone call, gasped. It was news to Mark that Stephen had that kind of background. "But my mother showed up today." The other end of the line was quiet for a few seconds after Stephen's admission. His heart didn't jump in fear, nor did his mind rush to a random, baseless conclusion. In the short time that he had known Lila, he learned that she was, in fact, very similar to him. So he knew that her silence just meant that she was thinking about his situation. "My dad's a lawyer. A good one," was all that she said. Stephen's heart swelled with a warm feeling. Things moved quickly after that. His mother, along with his father, had taken him to court in the following months. Lila's father had agreed to help him, and to his surprise, his friend, Philip, had, in fact, been a secret billionaire and helped him whenever money was short after he had found out about Stephen's family drama. He had won the case, and was even able to file a restraining order against his parents. After he finished college, he and Nick had been able to open up their own company. Well, he and Nick were the major shareholders of their company, but they wouldn't have actually been able to do it without Philip's help. It was apparently his way of paying Stephen back for something he had helped him with a long time ago. A year after the successful opening of their company, Stephen proposed to Lila. She hadn't been a secret billionaire, but she had been his golden light, one that he made sure to cherish every single day.